Hello everybody, this is Gareth Cahoon Speaks back here with another video. I'd like you to hit the subscribe bar, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, or hit the notification bell to be notified when I post my next post. Or otherwise you can donate to my ministry and the charities that I support at garethcahoon3 at gmail.com on PayPal. This one here is Israel must crack down far more seriously on settler Jewish violence against Palestinians. Criminality in Judea and Samaria is morally wrong and giving Israel's international image a terrible black eye. Jerusalem, Israel. These last few months have seen a noticeable rise in violent attacks perpetrated by Jewish Israeli citizens against Palestinian civilians in the region of Judea and Samaria, the area that the world calls the West Bank, a phenomenon often lumped under the umbrella term settler violence. All Israel News unequivocally condemns such violence against Palestinians, whatever it occurs. We recognise what Israelis' critics and enemies do not. The vast majority of Israelis who live in these biblical yet disputed territories are law-abiding citizens. Those who are committing these acts of violence and vandalism are a small percentage of the settler movement, but they are doing terrible damage to Israel's already battered image worldwide. All Israel News calls on the Israeli authorities to dramatically improve criminal investigations, arrests, and prosecutions of violent criminals and take serious measures to prevent future cases. What's more, Israeli authorities must prosecute these violent and criminal settlers to the fullest extent of the law. This is the right thing to do. It is the moral thing to do. It is also the wise thing to do. Our reputation and international public opinion has already taken a beating since the October 7th war. Any Israeli government that refuses to crack down on violence against Palestinian Arabs is only making our situation significantly worse. Unfortunately, the situation is far too complex to leave it at this. Much has been written in the global media about settler violence and labelled applied to various kinds of incidents and actions. Yet these actions are being exploited as a weapon against Israel. Some are making the provable false claim that Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinians. The most recent example is an American Democrat presidential hopeful called Rohit Ro Khanna of California soft launches his presidential campaign by drawing international outrage, which claims that he was detained by Israeli settlers who helped with help of the Israeli military. This is after he was temporarily prevented from entering a closed military zone without any violence during a trip that he reportedly refused to coordinate with the Israeli government or the US Embassy. Canada then used the wave of publicity over the issue to make terrible and untrue accusations against Israel, and not for the first time either. In 2025, Canada wrote an X, I agree with the UN Commission's heartbreaking finding that there is a genocide in Gaza. What matters is what we do about it. Stop military sales that are being used to kill civilians and recognise a Palestinian state. We have explained many times the military situation in Gaza has been painful, messy, and deadly, but it is not genocide. The IDF has gone to extraordinary lengths to protect Palestinian civilians. If Israel truly wanted to commit genocide by killing all 2 million Gazans, it could have done so in a matter of hours, if not minutes. This is why we must note that the broad term settler violence has been applied far too liberally. The term being weaponised against a population of hundreds of thousands of Israelis who are living peacefully in their ancestral homeland, over 90% of them in towns that will stay part of Israel, even under any realistic two-state solution. Israeli NGOs have long protested The fact that statistics from the United Nations or human rights groups purporting to list hundreds, even thousands of incidents of settler violence are often filled with the mildest of incidents, such as road accidents, Jews ascending the Tar- Temple Mount, or Jewish school classes visiting archaeological sites in Judea and Samaria. Far more serious incidents are real, unjustified violence are being carried out by Israeli civilians, most often without any official involvement, and would be classified as regular criminal activity in any other context. For example, there are frequent brawls in which young Jewish and Palestinian shepherds fight over grazing rights, literally with sticks and stones. Some of these incidents receive media coverage out of all proportion to their impact, and we must stress that there are many, many more violent attacks by Palestinians against Israeli civilians in Judea and Samaria, which is the main reason law enforcement focuses on Palestinian terrorism rather than Jewish criminals. Yet real serious and grave examples of injustice do occur. They are most often perpetrated by small but ugly movement of Jewish Israeli hyper-nationalists, sometimes with active help from IDF soldiers who are often reservists, serving in or near their home communities. Another aspect of this injustice is the lack of effective law enforcement, whether in preventing these incidents, responding quickly when they are reported, or pursuing follow-up persecutions which are often shambolic or even non-existent. The real future in this situation the real failure in this situation is the unfortunately typical Israeli lack of an organised response. Yet Israeli officials have consistently condemned this violence, including Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. So have IDF officers respons- so have IDF officers responsible for security in the area, who are regularly referred to as Nazis by extremist settlers. But over the past few decades, successive Israeli governments have let law enforcement in Judea and Samaria slip to the point that the area has been described by many as a lawless Wild West. Palestinian terror groups, large clans, and violent youth factions are clashing with Jewish youth and extremist groups in the fields of the biblical homeland every day. The battle over grazing area and farmland has become a front line of the Israeli Palestinian conflict, and this is a failure of the government, which has neglected to enforce the law and order while pursuing clear and public politics in the area. To be clear, we at All Israel News believe in Israel's right to the biblical heartland, but we also believe it is the responsibility of the Jewish state to provide law and order, even when it means prosecuting Jewish Israelis for hurting people who may be our enemies. The current situation should not be tolerated for one moment longer. It is harming the state standing in the world even further, but most importantly, it is unjust and needs to be repaired now. I just want to tell you of a case as well as there is Jewish settler violence. There's also Palestinian settler violence that you don't hear about as often because it doesn't fit the narrative. But just for an example, over the weekend, a Palestinian set a fire in Judean and Samarian farmland, and the fire grew all out of proportions and ended up destroying 40 Jewish homes. And I seen the pictures myself of families crying outside burnt remains of their homes. So, as well as there is Jewish settler violence, there's also Palestinian settler violence that we often don't hear about because, as again I said, it doesn't fit the narrative. Shalom, Maranatha, and Hallelujah.